In the last fixture before the World Cup, Pep Guardiola and Manchester City want to finish things with a bang, but it did not happen as Brentford, the Bees, 2-1 at Manchester, their first win at Manchester since the 30s, and it was the man, Ivan Toney, not selected for the World Cup for England, and he had some redemption, some revenge, some calling out for Gareth Southgate today as his 2 goals, including his winning in the last minutes of this game, secured 3 points for Brentford and nothing for Manchester City. Janusz Michallik in the house. LME, Luis Miguel Echegaray. Janusz, initial thoughts about this game? Wow, Brentford come out with 3 points.
They do, and they deserved it, right? I mean, even if they didn't score that, I think I'd be saying the same thing if they didn't find a winner late, right? Could have been 3-1 as it was anyway towards the end. But, Premier League keeps you grounded, doesn't it? Incredible. I mean, this is the sort of result that I think is going to linger with Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. I think they're off for like 46 days. They wish it was minutes, I suppose. Because, this is a team that by now we would have thought was going to be at the top of the table on a good run, where probably the way they've played most of the time, you'd say, okay, see you later, the league is done. Now it's going to be a long 46 days with this win, because I don't think they deserve anything more out of that.
Let's stick with that, Janusz. I mean, obviously, credit to Brentford. We'll talk about Ivan Toney, Brentford in a second, and Thomas Frank delivering a great victory. But let's talk about, you mentioned something off taping. I wanted to bring it up about how maybe Pep Guardiola once again overthought things here. I thought they got a little lucky, of course, against Fulham as well. Fortunate to get with 3 points. And here that did not happen. In fact, the exact opposite. What happened with Man City today and Pep Guardiola?
Well, it was tough start to begin with, right? I mean, they didn't start the game well, which sometimes happens, but they usually find a way. But if you remember Onyeka in the 3rd minute, I think, and Ivan Toney, Ederson was wonderful. I mean, almost identical saves in the 6th minute as it was when it was 2-1, when Toney could have had a hat trick, right? Stopped him from close. So it wasn't a good start, but you figured that Manchester City was going to find a solution, but they didn't. Speaking of solutions, it was interesting to me to see that he didn't make those changes, right? Julian Alvarez came in 87th minute. This is a player that scored in the last 3 matches as well. But ultimately, I think, and I'm going to tiptoe into that because, I don't want to suggest anything dramatic here, but when you look at Haaland, they do play a different way. We often ask that question, right? And when he's on, he's absolutely wonderful, and we're going to see those games. But I think you had to look at this game and see probably 5, 6, maybe 7 occasions where they were just forcing to find Erling Haaland, and De Bruyne was doing that more than anybody else. And so, are Manchester City better with Erling Haaland? Of course, when somebody has 18 goals like that, and sure, but are they a better team all the time with Erling Haaland? That is a better question, because I think in the past, when they didn't have that sort of a number 9, everybody was working to find different solutions to win a game, and we've seen now, right? And we've seen now, not just in this game. Let's forget about this game. I still think that City are favorites, but anyway, let's forget about that, because after the World Cup, we're going to come out and he's going to have a hat trick with 4 goals in a game, and it'll be a different story. But the bottom line is there's going to be games like this when I don't want to say they over rely on him, but almost forget everything else. I look at Bernardo Silva, who's a wonderful player, non-existent. Part of the reason is I still think he's better. He's a better player when he plays in the midfield, right? Because he's around the ball a little bit more. He was lost out wide, and I see that every time he plays. Even Phil Foden, to a degree, today, wasn't as effective as you think, because they weren't around the ball enough, I suppose. So I think, that's the only conclusion I'll draw from this game, because it'll change from game to game. But if you wonder that, if City are different sometimes because of Haaland, today was a great example.
An excellent point. Absolutely, especially because they're so static, right? Janusz, like I feel like once Erling Haaland is in there, obviously, like you said, they're so good with him, but the movement that we're used to seeing up front with that trio in seasons prior with Man City, not happening as much.
the combination play is not happening in the wide areas, which is something that Manchester City were better than almost anybody I can remember, right? Barcelona could do that in the past. Of course, we all know that. But in wide areas, that combination play when they had David Silva, even with Gundogan, with Foden or Bernardo Silva, the width of the penalty area, which we often talk about, right? Low-lying defense. Let's not forget today, obviously, Thomas Frank changed the team to three in the back, three center backs, so they were great on the counter. As you have mentioned off air, how good Ivan Toney is in that. We saw Wisa when he came in, absolutely excellent. Henry Rico, tremendous from the beginning, right? Started a couple of great counters as well. And I think that the combination play goes through the middle. The first look is towards Haaland. And I'm not talking about the look for him to score, but sometimes to find him on the ground. Once again, I don't think he had a shot on goal today. Certainly not on target. Don't think, because as always, we do this right after the game. Don't think he had a shot on goal, but the combination play on the outside, it was non-existent. Yeah, just one more thing to add to that is today. Just that substitution very late. Not sure why Laporte was in the game. He's definitely Pep Guardiola always sends messages to anybody. He certainly seems to be sending a message to Ruben Dias, who as we know, when in form, right? Him and Van Dijk, when they're both on form, arguably top 2, 3, 4 in the world, certainly in the Premier League. And he hasn't been playing as well. So and you look at Akanji today, couple mistakes, right? He was involved on both goals in a negative way, and certainly taking a risk with with Laporte seems silly to me when you already have John Stones as a center back playing right back and you have Ruben Dias on the bench. So just one of those things, maybe one of those days, and I'm going to leave it at that because I know that Manchester City are going to prove everybody wrong time and time again. But I think we need to say the way it was. And that was that Brentford created more chances and they were the better team, even though they didn't have possession. Manchester City, possession to nowhere today.
The cautious realism for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City that sometimes you shouldn't overthink too much. But regardless, Manchester City wrap up before the World Cup with a loss. And the happier of everybody apart from Brentford, Arsenal.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.